the silent epidemic no one saw coming. In just one generation, something has gone terribly wrong. Anxiety, depression, and loneliness have exploded among young people at rates we've never seen before. The numbers are staggering. Teen depression has doubled since 2010. Self-harm rates among adolescent girls have tripled. Suicide rates among young people have skyrocketed to record highs. These aren't just statistics. They represent millions of lives quietly unraveling. Kids who should be thriving but instead are struggling to cope with even the smallest challenges. Why is this happening? We didn't live through a world war. We weren't struck by a devastating plague. There was no mass famine or economic collapse to explain this level of suffering. Yet somehow, it's the most privileged, connected, and digitally advanced generation in human history has become the most anxious, fragile, and disconnected. What changed? The answer is hiding in plain sight. It's not just the rise of social media. It's not just overprotective parenting. It's not just a failing education system. It's a perfect storm, a collision of forces that have radically reshaped childhood, socialization, and mental resilience in ways we never anticipated. For the first time in human history, we are witnessing an entire generation being raised in a digital-first world, and the consequences are more severe than we ever imagined. This is the story of how that happened and how we can fix it before it's too late. The deepest crisis of our time. Imagine a childhood without scraped knees, spontaneous adventures, or whispered secrets in tree houses. Imagine adolescence without the thrill of unplanned nights, awkward first crushes, or the confidence gained from figuring things out alone. For today's kids, these aren't hypotheticals. They are missing experiences. It's parts of life that were once essential but have quietly disappeared. Compare the childhood of someone born in the 1980s or 1990s to a child born after 2010. The difference is staggering. 1995, kids rode bikes to their friends' houses. They played unsupervised until the streetlights came on. They took risks, made mistakes, and learned from them without parental intervention. 2015, kids stayed indoors, glued to screens. Their social lives unfolded through apps. Their every move was monitored, scheduled, and safeguarded. The shift happened so gradually that we barely noticed it. But the effects are undeniable. We have raised a generation that is hyper-connected, yet deeply lonely, informed, yet paralyzed by overthinking. Safe yet terrified of taking risks. This isn't just a mental health crisis. This is a fundamental rewiring of how young people experience the world. It's a new reality where screens replace real-world experiences. Social validation depends on likes and followers. Failure is feared instead of embraced. Kids grow up physically safe but emotionally unprepared for life. We've engineered a world where kids no longer develop the psychological strength to handle discomfort, navigate challenges, or build real confidence. And now, we are paying the price. But here's the good news. This trend is reversible. This book isn't about blaming parents, demonizing technology, or painting a doomsday picture of the future. It's about understanding the forces at play so we can reclaim what we've lost. It's about giving kids back their resilience, independence, and ability to thrive in the real world. If we don't act now, we may lose an entire generation to anxiety, self-doubt, and fear. The clock is ticking. Let's get to work. What you'll discover in this book, in the chapters ahead, will dissect the 5 forces shaping today's anxious generation. Okay? More importantly, How to fight back. The screen trap. How smartphones and social media hijacked childhood and rewired young minds. The safety obsession. How overprotective parenting unintentionally made kids more fragile, not stronger. The decline of play. Why unstructured? Unsupervised play is the key to resilience and why it's vanishing. The attention crisis. How constant digital stimulation is crippling focus, creativity, and deep thinking. The fear factor. Why today's kids see the world as more dangerous than it really is, and how we can restore their confidence. And most importantly, hoped. You'll learn the science-backed, practical steps to help kids or yourself break free from the anxiety epidemic. This isn't just a book, it's a wake-up call. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Screen Trap. How Smartphones Rewired Childhood. The moment everything changed. If you had to pinpoint the exact moment childhood changed forever, you'd land somewhere between 2007 and 2012. In 2007, Steve Jobs stood on stage and introduced the iPhone. It was sleek, powerful, and though no one realized it at the time, a Trojan horse that would fundamentally alter human behavior. At first, smartphones were just tools for adults, but within a few years, something shifted. By 2012, more than 50% of teenagers owned a smartphone. By 2015, almost every teenager had one, and then something eerie happened. Between 2010 and 2015, researchers noticed an alarming spike in mental health issues among young people. Teen depression rates doubled. Anxiety disorders skyrocketed. Hospital admissions for self-harm among adolescent girls tripled. Psychologists and educators were baffled. There was no war, no economic collapse, no major trauma. Yet something was clearly wrong. And then, researchers saw the pattern. The mental health crisis perfectly aligned with the rise of smartphones and social media. This wasn't a coincidence. Something about constant connectivity, about living life through a screen, was quiet wiring young brains in ways we didn't understand. Now, more than a decade later, we do understand, and the truth is terrifying. The digital hijacking of childhood. To grasp the full impact of smartphones, we need to understand one simple fact. A child's brain is not designed for infinite stimulation. For most of human history, childhood was shaped by real-world experiences, playing outside, getting into minor trouble, forming deep friendships, and learning from face-to-face interactions. But today, childhood unfolds through a screen. The average teenager now spends 8+ hours a day on a screen, 4+ hours on social media, hundreds of micro moments, seeking validation from likes and comments. Send. The consequences are devastating. Social media and smartphones aren't just tools, they are behavioral engineering devices designed to keep users addicted. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat operate on one core principle: maximize engagement at all costs. This means endless scrolling designed to keep kids hooked. Artificially curated content that distorts reality, instant validation loops that create anxiety and dependency. It's no surprise that studies show the more time kids spend on social media, the more anxious and depressed they become. But why? Because social media amplifies every psychological vulnerability in young minds. Let's break it down. How social media breeds anxiety and depression. 1. The comparison. I'm not enough. Imagine you're 14 years old. You open Instagram and see your classmate posting a perfect beach vacation, a fitness influencer with an impossible body, a group of friends hanging out without you, even though you know people only post their highlights. Your brain still interprets it as real life, and without realizing it, you start believing everyone else is happier than me. I'm not attractive enough. I don't belong. This isn't just a theory. Studies show that the more time teens spend on social media, the worse they feel about themselves. And for teenage girls, the impact is even more severe. A groundbreaking study from Facebook, which they tried to keep hidden, found that Instagram makes 1 in 3 teenage girls feel worse about their bodies. Not just bad, worse taught too. The addiction loop. Just one more scroll. Social media apps are engineered to be addictive. Every time a teen gets a like, comment, or new follower, their brain releases a hit of dopamine, the same brain chemical involved in drug addiction. But here's the catch. The dopamine wears off quickly. So, the brain craves more, and the only way to get more is to keep scrolling. This is why kids check their phones 100 times a day and feel restless without them. It's not a lack of willpower. It's a neurological trap, and it gets worse. 3. The fear of missing out, FOMO. What if I'm left out? Before social media, if you weren't invited to a party, you might not even know it happened. Today, you see it in real time. Photos, videos, inside jokes broadcast for everyone except you. For teens, this is a psychological gut punch. It creates social anxiety. What if I'm always left out? Oh, paranoia. Are people talking about me? Depression. I'll never be good enough. And in an attempt to keep up, teens become obsessed with curating their own online persona. Not being present, not enjoying the moment, just crafting an image that gets validation. And when the validation doesn't come, anxiety, insecurity, and self-doubt flood in. Point 4. Sleep disruption. I can't shut my brain off. Teenagers need 8 to 10 hours of sleep per night. But thanks to smartphones, most are barely getting 6. The biggest reason: nighttime screen use. The blue light from screens disrupts melatonin production, making it harder to fall asleep. Scrolling before bed keeps the brain overstimulated, preventing deep sleep. The addictive nature of social media makes kids stay up later, delaying rest, and the result? Chronic sleep deprivation, which weakens emotional regulation, leading to more anxiety and irritability, impairs focus and memory, making school harder, disrupts brain development, affecting long-term resilience. It's no coincidence that the rise of smartphones coincides with an explosion of sleep disorders among teens, and poor sleep directly fuels anxiety and depression. How do we fix this? The first steps to breaking free. The good news: we can reverse the damage, but it won't happen automatically. Here's where we start. 1. Delay smartphone use as long as possible. Earlier a child gets a smartphone, greater the mental health risks. 12-year-olds with phones have higher rates of anxiety than 16-year-olds, the ideal age for a personal smartphone. 14 to 16 years old. 2. Set screen time limits. No screens in bedrooms at night. 1 hour social media time cap per day. Designate tech-free hours for real-world activities. 3. Prioritize real-world interaction, more face-to-face time, fewer digital distractions. Encourage sports, clubs, hobbies, and outdoor play. Make socializing about real connection, not just texting and DMs, for teach kids to be critical of social media. Help them understand that social media is not real life. Discuss how algorithms manipulate emotions. Teach how to use social media mindfully, not compulsively. Final thought, the time to act is now. Smartphones and social media have hijacked childhood, but we are not powerless. By making small, intentional changes, we can help kids reclaim their focus, build real confidence, develop true resilience. Next generation deserves better. Let's give them their childhood back. Chapter 2. The Safety Obsession. Why Overprotection is Making Kids More Fragile. Paradox of Modern Parenting. Imagine a parent from 1985 watching today's kids grow up. They'd see a world where kids rarely ride their bikes alone. Playgrounds are empty after school. Parents track their children's location in real time. Helicopter parenting isn't just common, it's the norm. At first glance, this might seem like progress. Parents today are more involved, attentive, and protective than ever before. But something isn't adding up. If increased safety and parental involvement were the keys to raising happier, healthier kids, we'd expect this generation to be thriving. Instead, we're witnessing the highest rates of anxiety, depression, and emotional fragility in history. What's going wrong? The uncomfortable truth is this: by trying to make childhood safer, we've unintentionally made kids weaker. This is the paradox of modern parenting. Overprotection breeds fragility. And unless we reverse course, the damage will only get worse. How? Overprotection is crippling emotional growth. For most of history, childhood was risky, unstructured, and full of challenges. Kids roamed neighborhoods unsupervised, climbed trees, fell down, got scraped up, and learned from their mistakes. They weren't reckless. They were developing resilience. But in the past 20 to 30 years, an invisible shift happened. We stopped letting kids experience risk, discomfort, and failure. Instead, we eliminated physical risks, removing dangerous playgrounds, banning tag, discouraging rough play, shielded kids from emotional discomfort, preventing teasing, mediating every conflict, discouraging competition, supervised their lives to an extreme degree. GPS tracking, controlled playdates, constant monitoring, and as a result, we produced a generation of young people who are physically safe, but emotionally fragile. Let's break it down. 1. The death of free play. Why kids aren't learning to handle risk. Picture a group of kids in 1980. They're playing outside, maybe a game of tag, or climbing a tree, or building something dangerous looking in the backyard. There are no adults around. If someone falls, they shake it off. If there's an argument, they figure it out. If something goes wrong, they learn what not to do next time. This is how kids naturally develop resilience. But today, unsupervised play has almost completely disappeared. In 1971, 80% of kids walked to school alone. By 1990, that number dropped to 10%. Today, it's even lower. Why? Because we've convinced ourselves that the world is too dangerous. But here's the truth. The world today is safer than it was in the 1970s, 80s, or 90s. Child abductions are lower than they were decades ago. Crime rates have declined significantly in most developed countries, yet we act like every moment without parental supervision is a potential disaster. And by constantly supervising, restricting and shielding kids. We've denied them the opportunity to develop independence. The result, a generation that struggles with decision-making because adults have always made the choices for them. Emotional regulation because they haven't had to navigate. Social struggles alone. Courage and resilience because they've never faced real-world risks. And worst of all, when they finally face challenges in adulthood, they're completely unprepared. 2. The rise of safetyism. How we started protecting kids from everything. The term safetyism describes a society that prioritizes safety above all else, even at the cost of emotional growth. It's the belief that children must be shielded from all possible harm, discomfort, and risk. And it's everywhere. Schools banning refundable games because someone might get hurt. Playgrounds removing swings and slides to avoid potential injuries. Teachers discouraging competitive activities so no one feels left out. At first, this might seem like common sense, but here's the problem. When kids don't experience risk, they don't learn how to handle it. And when they don't experience discomfort, they don't develop emotional strength. This is why today's teenagers struggle with higher anxiety levels because they've never been exposed to manageable stress. Lower resilience because they haven't had to solve real-world problems. A fear of failure because they've never been allowed to fail and bounce back by trying to eliminate every possible hardship. We've created young people who are less capable of handling life. Point 3. The impact of overparenting. When love becomes a trap, most parents today deeply love their kids. That's not the issue. The issue is how we express that love. For many modern parents, love has become synonymous with constant intervention, fixing every problem before the child has a chance to solve it, protecting them from every disappointment, from bad grades to social rejection, micromanaging their decisions so they never experience failure. And while this feels like good parenting, it's actually a trap. Because when kids grow up never struggling, never failing, and never facing challenges alone, they develop low self-confidence because they've never proven they can handle things alone. Paralyzing fear of failure because failure has always been catastrophic instead of a learning experience. Dependence on authority figures because they've never been trusted to make real decisions. By overparenting, we've unintentionally made kids less competent, less courageous, and more anxious. And if we don't fix it, the consequences will follow them into adulthood. How to reverse the damage. Raising strong, resilient kids again. If we want to build stronger, healthier, more resilient kids, we need to start undoing the damage of overprotection. Here's how. 1. Let kids experience risk in a controlled way. Let them climb trees, ride bikes, and play without constant supervision. Encourage healthy risk-taking. They might fail or get a few scrapes. Teach them to assess danger instead of just avoiding it. Point 2. Stop solving their problems for them. Let them resolve their own conflicts instead of stepping in immediately. If they forget their homework, let them deal with the consequences. If they fail at something, let them see it as a learning experience, not a disaster. 3. Reduce overscheduling and over-supervision. Kids don't need every hour structured with organized activities. Give them unstructured free time to figure things out for themselves. Encourage independent play without parents hovering. 4. Teach emotional resilience. Let them experience discomfort, boredom, and frustration. These are normal parts of life. Help them reframe failure as a stepping stone to growth, not a catastrophe. Encourage problem solving and self-reliance. Final thought. The courage to step back. Protecting kids is natural, but overprotecting them creates fragile young adults who struggle with real life. True love isn't about removing every obstacle. It's about preparing them to handle obstacles on their own. It's time to stop shielding and start strengthening. The next generation needs courage, not coddling. Let's give it to them. Chapter 3. The Digital Social Experiment. How social media became the new playground. The shift no one saw coming. There was a time when childhood was defined by real-world experiences. Kids met up in person, played outside until the streetlights came on, and figured out social dynamics face to face. But then something changed, almost overnight. An entire generation moved their social lives online. Instead of playing at the park, kids started hanging out on Snapchat instead of passing notes in class. They sent DMZ and emojis. Instead of navigating face-to-face conflict, they dealt with it through texts, subtweets, ghosting. What started as a fun distraction became something much bigger. A complete rewiring of how young people interact, form friendships, and develop their sense of self. The real world took a back seat. The new playground became digital, but unlike the playgrounds of the past, one was designed to be addictive. It was engineered for maximum engagement, not for mental well-being. And the consequences. We're only just beginning to understand how deep the damage goes. Why social media took over so fast. Every major shift in society happens for a reason. So why did social media become the dominant force in teenage life so quickly? The answer lies in three major factors. 1. The sudden rise of the smartphone. In the early 2000s, phones were just tools devices for calls and texts. But in 2007, the iPhone changed everything. Now, kids didn't just have phones. They had the entire internet in their pockets. And as smartphone adoption skyrocketed, so did screen time by 2012. Over 50% of teenagers had smartphones. By 2015, that number jumped to 73%. Today, it's nearly universal. And with that shift, an entire generation started living online. Point 2. The birth of algorithm-driven social media. Social media wasn't always what it is today. Early platforms like MySpace and Facebook were about connecting with friends. But once companies figured out that engagement equals profit, everything changed. Algorithms were introduced. Instead of just showing posts in chronological order, platforms started manipulating what users saw to keep them hooked. The more time you spent scrolling, the more data they collected. The more data they collected, the better they could predict and control your behavior. And for teenagers, this was a recipe for addiction. They weren't just using social media. Social media was using them. 3. The fear of missing out. FOMO effect. Before social media, if you weren't invited to a party, you might never find out. Now, you'll see photos, videos, and stories of everything you missed in real time. For teenagers, this creates crippling anxiety. Every scroll brings a new reminder of where they rank socially. Who's popular? Who's being excluded? Who's getting attention? Social life became a 24/7 competition, and for many young people, the pressure became too much to handle. The psychological toll of social media on kids. The numbers tell a devastating story. Since the early 2010s, right when social media became dominant traits of teenage anxiety, Depression and self-harm have skyrocketed. Teen depression rates have more than doubled since 2010. Self-harm rates among teenage girls have increased by over 100%. Suicide rates among young people have surged to record highs. What's causing this? Let's break it down. 1. The comparison trap. Why social media makes kids feel like they're never enough. No generation has been bombarded with more curated, filtered, and perfected images than today's kids. Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok create an illusion of perfection that no real life can match. Everyone else seems happier, more attractive, more successful. Every post is a highlight reel carefully selected to impress. Reality starts feeling disappointing. This constant comparison is crushing young people's self-esteem. Studies show that the more time teens spend on social media, the worse they feel about themselves. They're measuring their worth in likes, followers, and views. And when they don't measure up, they spiral into self-doubt, anxiety, and depression. 2. The social feedback loop. Why kids can't put their phones down. Social media isn't just addictive, it's designed to be. Here's how the cycle works. 1. Post something. 2. Wait for likes and comments. 3. Get a dopamine hit when people engage. 4. Feel anxious when engagement is low. 5. Post again to chase validation. This is the same psychological loop that drives gambling addiction. Every notification triggers a dopamine release, and because the rewards are unpredictable, kids keep checking just in case. It's not willpower that keeps them hooked. It's neurology, and companies know this. That's why platforms use infinite scrolling, so you never feel finished. Push notifications to pull you back the moment you disconnect. Streaks and engagement incentives to keep you posting. These platforms weren't built for kids' mental health. They were built to trap their tension, and it's working. 3. The decline of real-world social skills. Kids who grow up socializing online instead of in person struggle with reading facial expressions and body language, handling difficult conversations without ghosting or blocking, building deep, meaningful friendships. Instead of developing emotional intelligence, they learn to communicate in likes, emojis, and short replies. The result? We're raising a generation that's digitally connected but emotionally disconnected. They don't feel seen, heard, or understood. And that's why loneliness among teenagers is at an all-time high. How to help kids break free from the digital trap? The solution isn't to ban social media completely, but we must start creating a healthier balance. Here's how. 1. Delay social media as long as possible. Kids don't need TikTok at 10 years old. The later they start, the better their mental health will be. Recommendation: no social media before age 16.2. Set clear boundaries on screen time. No phones at meals. No screens in bedrooms at night. Set time limits for social media use. 3. Encourage real-world socialization. Get kids involved in sports, hobbies, and face-to-face activities. Teach them how to have real conversations without screens. Prioritize in-person friendships over digital ones. 4. Teach kids how social media manipulates them. Help them see how algorithms are designed to exploit their attention. Show them how to recognize and break free from addictive loops. Teach them that their worth isn't measured in likes or followers. Final thought: taking back control. Social media isn't going away, but if we don't teach kids how to control it, it will continue to control them. The goal isn't to eliminate technology, it's to make sure it doesn't replace real life, because childhood isn't meant to be lived through a screen at its time to bring kids back to the real world. Chapter 4. The Epidemic of Anxiety. Why today's kids are more stressed than ever. The silent crisis no one saw coming. Something is wrong. If you walk through any high school today, you'll notice it. More teens than ever are stressed, exhausted, and emotionally fragile. Panic attacks are common. Self-harm rates have skyrocketed. More kids than ever are on medication for anxiety and depression. This isn't just a phase, it's a crisis. Since 2010, rates of teenage anxiety and depression have surged to historic highs. Teen depression has doubled. Suicide rates among young people have risen by over 50%. Visits for self-harm have tripled among adolescent girls. What's happening? Why is this generation struggling more than any before it? The truth is, we changed childhood. We took away the things that made kids resilient. We replaced them with a fragile, high-pressure, digital existence. And now we're seeing the consequences. The hidden forces driving the anxiety epidemic. Anxiety doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It's fueled by specific conditions. And today's kids are growing up in a perfect storm of anxiety triggers. Here's what changed. 1. The decline of free play and independence. For most of history, kids spent hours every day playing outside, unsupervised. They climbed trees, they scraped their knees, they solved problems without adults hovering over them. This wasn't just fun, it was how kids developed resilience. Every time they navigated a tricky social situation, every time they dealt with a bully on their own, every time they faced a challenge without a parent stepping in, their brains learned how to handle stress. But in the last 20 years, something changed. We stopped letting kids be kids. We overprotected them. We scheduled every moment of their lives. We removed opportunities for independent problem solving. The result? A generation that never developed real coping skills. They don't know how to handle setbacks, uncertainty, or discomfort. So when stress inevitably comes, they break down instead of breaking through. 2. The rise of social media and digital overload, as we covered in Chapter 3. Today's teens live online. This isn't just bad for focus or sleep, it's fueling an epidemic of anxiety. Social media creates constant comparison, gives why is everyone else happier, prettier, more successful than me? Social pressure 24/7 gives what if I miss out? What if I don't get enough likes? A never-ending information overload gives there's always something to worry about. Wars, climate change, school shootings. Their brains are constantly overstimulated, constantly stressed, and because they're always online, they never fully unplug. Their nervous systems never get a break. 3. The pressure to perform. Why kids feel like they're never good enough. In previous generations, childhood was about learning and exploring. Today, it's about achievement. From a young age, kids are told, your grades define your future. You need a perfect resume by age 16. If you don't get into the right college, you'll fail in life. The pressure is relentless. Even playtime has turned into structured, competitive activities. Sports are no longer just for fun, they're about getting a scholarship. Art, music, and hobbies. They have to be productive or worth something. Even relaxation is guilt-inducing because there's always more work to do. For kids, This creates chronic stress. They feel like they're constantly being judged. They feel like they can never relax. They feel like nothing they do is ever enough. This is the perfect recipe for anxiety. Point 4. The sleep crisis. Why today's teens are exhausted and overwhelmed. Most parents don't realize just how bad the sleep crisis has become. Teenagers today are getting less sleep than ever before. The average high schooler should be getting 8 to 10 hours of sleep per night. Instead, most are getting 6 hours or less. 1 in 3 teens is chronically sleep deprived. What's stealing their sleep? Late night social media scrolling, phones in bed equals no rest. Early school start times. Waking up at 6 a.m. is unnatural for teens. Closing parenthesis. Chronic stress. Anxiety makes it harder to fall asleep. Why does this matter? Because lack of sleep equals increased anxiety and depression. When kids don't get enough sleep, their brains become more reactive to stress. They struggle to regulate emotions. They're more likely to feel hopeless and overwhelmed. Sleep deprivation alone could explain a huge chunk of the mental health crisis. And yet, most schools, parents, and policymakers are ignoring it. The cost of an anxious generation? This isn't just about feeling stressed. Anxiety is reshaping an entire generation. Kids who grow up anxious are more likely to avoid challenges instead of facing them, develop depression and struggle with motivation, turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms, self-harm, substance abuse, avoidance, carry these struggles into adulthood. This isn't just an individual problem. It's a societal problem. An anxious generation leads to a weaker future because the kids who should be building the world of tomorrow are too afraid to step forward today. How to help kids break free from the anxiety cycle? The good news: anxiety is not inevitable. We can reverse this trend. But it starts with making different choices. Here's how. 1. Give kids back their independence. Let them solve problems on their own. Encourage unstructured free play without adult interference. Teach them that struggles are normal and survivable. 2. Limit social media and screen time. Delay social media until at least age 16. Set firm boundaries. No phones at night. No endless scrolling. Teach kids how algorithms manipulate them. 3. Shift the focus from achievement to growth. Stop treating childhood like a competition. Celebrate effort and learning, not just outcomes. Let kids fail safely so they can learn resilience. 4. Fix the sleep crisis. Advocate for later school start times. Enforce no screens at least 1 hour before bed. Prioritize consistent sleep schedules. Final thought: raising a generation that can handle life. Kids don't need a stress-free life. They need the skills to handle stress without breaking down. Right now, we're raising kids in a world that maximizes anxiety. If we want a healthier generation, we must change the way we're raising them. Because childhood should not be defined by stress, pressure, and fear. It should be a time of growth, adventure, and discovery. It's time to take childhood back. Chapter 5. The decline of face-to-face friendships. Why kids feel more isolated than ever. The loneliest generation. In 2000, if you asked a group of middle schoolers what they were doing after school, the answer was simple: riding bikes with friends, going to the park, hanging out at the mall. Fast forward to today, and the answers are alarmingly different. watching YouTube, playing video games alone in my room, texting friends, but not actually seeing them. Difference. Kids used to spend time together in person. Now they spend time alone, interacting through screens. This shift is not a small change. It's a fundamental rewiring of social life, and the consequences. Loneliness is at an all-time high. Kids feel socially anxious and disconnected. Mental health issues are skyrocketing. Today's teens are the most digitally connected generation in history. Yet, they report feeling more isolated than any generation before them. What happened? How did friendship, one of the most fundamental aspects of childhood, start to disappear? The friendship crisis. What changed? For most of human history, friendships were built in the real world. Kids made friends by exploring their neighborhoods, playing outside for hours, navigating face-to-face social dynamics. But in just one generation, everything changed. One, the replacement of real friendships with online interactions. Social Volcano was supposed to connect us. Instead, it's done the opposite. Kids today spend hours socializing online. But what does that really mean? Liking a post is not the same as laughing with a friend in person. Commenting lol is not the same as actually hearing someone's laugh. Texting, I'm here for you, is not the same as physically being there. Digital communication is shallow. It lacks eye contact, body language, real-time emotions. And without those things, friendships become weaker, more fragile, and less meaningful. 2. The disappearance of unstructured play. Think about how friendships used to form. Kids didn't schedule play dates. They walked outside, knocked on a friend's door, and figured out what to do. Through that, they learned how to negotiate social dynamics, how to resolve conflicts without adult intervention, how to handle boredom and make their own fun. But today, play is structured, supervised, and limited. Parents schedule every interaction. Kids don't learn how to socialize naturally. Instead of building strong social skills, they rely on digital interactions where everything is controlled, filtered, and edited. The result? A generation that struggles with real-life socialization. 3. The rise of fear. Why parents don't let kids out. In the 1980s and 1990s, kids roamed their neighborhoods freely. By middle school, they were riding bikes miles away from home, taking public transportation alone, spending hours at the park with no adult supervision. Today, most parents won't even let their kids walk to school. Why? Because they've been conditioned to see danger everywhere. What if they get kidnapped? What if they get hurt? What if something bad happens and I'm not there to protect them? The truth. Crime rates are lower today than they were in the 1980s and 1990s. But thanks to 24/7's news cycles and viral social media horror stories, parents feel like the world is more dangerous than ever. So they keep their kids inside, and that means fewer friendships, less independence, and a lot more loneliness. 4. The decline of in-person social skills. Friendships are built on more than words. They require reading facial expressions, understanding tone of voice, responding to real-time emotions. But if kids spend all their time communicating through screens, they don't develop those skills. This is why we're seeing more social anxiety. Kids feel awkward in real-life conversations, more avoidance, instead of resolving conflicts. They ghost each other, weaker friendships. Connections feel superficial and easily disposable. Simply put, kids aren't learning how to connect deeply with others. and that's making them lonelier than ever. The consequences of a friendless generation. What happens when kids grow up without strong in-person friendships? Higher rates of anxiety and depression. Humans are wired for connection. Without it, mental health suffers. More social awkwardness. Without practice, real-world interactions feel scary and overwhelming. Increased loneliness. In adulthood, if kids don't develop social skills young, they struggle to form relationships later. Friendships aren't just a luxury, they're a necessity. Without them, kids struggle in every aspect of life. And right now, we're raising a generation that doesn't know how to make or maintain real friendships. How to help kids rebuild real friendships. The good news? This can be fixed. Here's how. 1. Encourage more in-person interaction. Make real-life friendships a priority. Encourage kids to spend time together outside of screens. Let them hang out without structured activities. 2. Reduce social media and digital dependency. Delay smartphone and social media use as long as possible. Set clear boundaries. No screens during meals. No texting instead of talking. Encourage kids to call or meet up instead of texting. 3. Give kids back their freedom. Let them walk to a friend's house alone. Encourage unstructured, unsupervised play. Teach them that it's okay to explore. And be independent. 4. Teach social skills directly. Help kids learn how to have real conversations. Teach them how to read social cues and handle conflicts. Model strong relationships so they see what real friendships look like. Final thought. We must rebuild the lost art of friendship. Friendship is not optional. It's one of the most important factors in mental health and happiness. But in just one generation, we've made it harder for kids to form deep, real connections. If we want to reverse the loneliness epidemic, we must give kids back real social experiences, help them build real life friendships, create a world where connection isn't just digital. It's real because no child should feel like they're facing life alone. Chapter 6. The Culture of Fragility. Why Kids Are Less Resilient Than Ever. The epidemic of emotional fragility. Not long ago, kids were expected to handle setbacks. If you failed a test, you studied harder. If you fell off your bike, you got back on. If a friend hurt your feelings, you've learned to work it out. Today, a low grade is seen as traumatizing. A minor insult is called bullying. Any discomfort is seen as harm. Something has shifted. We've gone from raising resilient kids to raising fragile ones. More teens than ever say they can't handle stress. More young adults melt down over minor obstacles. More schools and colleges are overwhelmed with mental health crises. The world hasn't become harder. We've just stopped preparing kids to handle it. What happened? Why are kids less resilient today? Resilience isn't something you're born with. It's something you build through experience, struggle, and adaptation. But in just one generation, we've removed nearly every opportunity for kids to develop. Here's how. 1. The overprotection epidemic. Why parents shield kids from struggle. A child's life used to be full of small struggles. They played outside and got hurt. They dealt with mean kids at school. They had to solve their own problems. These challenges toughen them up. But today, parents hover over everything. Every risk is avoided. Every discomfort is prevented. Instead of letting kids face and overcome difficulties, we've taught them to avoid them. And when you never face difficulty, you never develop resilience. Kids don't learn to solve problems. They panic over small failures. They grow up anxious and helpless. We thought we were protecting them. Instead, we weakened them. 2. The rise of trigger warnings and safe spaces, when comfort becomes more important than growth. In the past, kids were expected to handle uncomfortable situations. But today, the book contains a difficult topic. It gets a trigger warning. If a debate makes someone uncomfortable, they demand a safe space. If a person disagrees with you, they're labeled as toxic. Instead of teaching kids to navigate discomfort, we've taught them to avoid it. The problem? Avoidance doesn't make you stronger. Avoidance makes you weaker. Life is full of hard conversations, difficult emotions, and uncomfortable truths. If kids aren't exposed to them early, they struggle when real life gets tough. 3. The participation trophy generation. Why failure is now seen as harmful. In the past, failure was a normal part of growing up. If you lost a game, you trained harder. If you didn't get picked for something, you tried again. If you struggled in school, you found a way to improve. Failure built resilience. But then, society decided that failure was too harsh. Every kid started getting a trophy. Every challenge was made easier. Every child was told they were special no matter what the result. Kids never learned how to handle losing. Kids never learned how to bounce back. Kids grew up expecting success without effort. Now, when they finally face real failure in life, they fall apart because no one ever taught them how to handle it. For the therapy culture, pathologizing normal struggles. In previous generations, feeling sad or stressed was considered a normal part of life. Now, every emotional struggle gets labeled as anxiety, depression, trauma. Of course, real mental health issues exist, but today, we've pathologized normal emotions. Feeling nervous, that's anxiety. Feeling sad, you must be depressed. Had a bad experience? That's trauma. Instead of teaching kids how to cope, we've taught them to self-diagnose and catastrophize. The more we label normal struggles as disorders, the more kids believe they're broken. And that belief makes them weaker, not stronger. What happens? When kids grow up without resilience, they can't handle real-world pressure. They avoid challenges instead of facing them. They struggle in relationships, school, and careers. Life is hard. Resilient people push through. Fragile people collapse. Right now, we are raising a generation that collapses. And if we don't change course, they won't survive the real world. How to build resilience in kids again. The good news. Resilience can be rebuilt. Here's how. 1. Let kids struggle. Stop rescuing them from everything. Let them fail and figure things out. Let them deal with hard emotions without fixing everything for them. Teach them that setbacks make them stronger. 2. Stop teaching kids to fear discomfort. Teach them that stress is normal. Show them how to face fears instead of avoiding them. Teach them that confidence comes from doing hard things. 3. Bring back real consequences. Stop giving participation trophies. Let kids experience real competition and real failure. Teach them that success comes from effort, not entitlement. 4. Redefine mental strength. Teach kids that resilience is built through action, not avoidance. Help them understand that they are stronger than their emotions. Show them that struggle isn't trauma, it's training. Final thought. Strength comes from struggle. Right now, we are raising a generation that is weaker, more anxious, and more fragile than ever. But this is not inevitable. If we change course now, we can rebuild resilience. How? By letting kids struggle and grow, by making them face discomfort instead of avoiding it, by teaching them that life isn't safe, but they are strong enough to handle it. Because the real world isn't a safe space, and the only way to thrive in it is to be strong enough to face it. Chapter 7. The Mental Health Crisis. How did we get here? The explosion of teen anxiety, depression, and suicide. Something is deeply wrong in just 1 decade. Teen anxiety and depression have doubled. Suicide rates among young people have skyrocketed. More kids than ever are on psychiatric medication. We are witnessing the greatest mental health crisis in modern history. More teens than ever say they feel empty, hopeless, and overwhelmed. More young people struggle with basic life responsibilities. More parents are watching their children crumble under pressure. This isn't a random trend. It's a crisis we created. How did this happen? More importantly, how do we fix it? What changed? Why are kids struggling more than ever? Mental health issues have existed for centuries, but they've never been this widespread. So what happened? Why did an entire generation suddenly start falling apart? Here's the uncomfortable truth. The world didn't get harder. Kids just became less prepared for it, and that didn't happen by accident. We created 6 major shifts that weakened kids mentally and now they're paying the price. 1. The smartphone and social media revolution 2009 to 2012. A generation raised online. If you could pinpoint one moment when teen mental health collapsed, it would be 2009 to 2012. Why? Because that's when the iPhone became mainstream. Social media exploded. Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, closing parenthesis. Kids moved their entire social lives online. Before this, kids still hung out in person, played outside, experienced real relationships. After 2012, face-to-face time plummeted. Screen time skyrocketed. Kids became addicted to likes, follows, and validation. The result? They lost real human connection and their mental health crumbled. Studies show that the more time teens spend online, the more anxious and depressed they become. Social media rewires the brain for comparison, validation seeking, and endless distraction. Instead of building resilience, kids became addicted to digital escape. We gave kids a powerful drug, social media, before they were old enough to handle it, and now they're paying the price too. The death of play. Why kids stopped learning life skills. A generation ago, kids played outside for hours. They had adventures, took risks, and solved problems. This wasn't just fun. It was brain training. Play taught kids how to handle uncertainty, how to manage risk, how to deal with conflict. But today, free play is almost gone. Parents micromanage everything. Kids rarely experience unstructured freedom. Instead of learning how to handle the world, kids grow up sheltered and unprepared. And when real challenges hit, they collapse. 3. The pressure cooker of modern parenting. Overprotecting and overloading kids. Today's kids are being pushed harder than ever while being protected. More than ever, overprotected from struggle, overloaded with academic and social pressure. It's a brutal combination. Kids are told that failure is unacceptable. They feel constant pressure to achieve, but at the same time, they've been shielded from real-world struggles. So when they face failure, they don't know how to handle it. Result? More anxiety, more breakdowns, More. Kids feeling like they're never good enough. Point 4. The sleep deprivation crisis. A generation running on empty. Today's teens are chronically sleep-deprived. Why? Screens keep them up late. Schools start too early. Stress keeps them from sleeping deeply. The impact. Sleep deprivation is directly linked to anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts. Without sleep, the brain can't regulate emotions properly. Exhausted kids are more impulsive, overwhelmed, and hopeless. We tell kids to prioritize mental health, but then force them to live in a system that destroys it. If we fix sleep, we would dramatically reduce teen mental health issues. 5. The mental health industry boom. Over-pathologizing normal struggles, feeling nervous before a test, that's anxiety. Feeling sad after a breakup, that's depression. Had a bad childhood experience, that's trauma too. Today, normal struggles are being labeled as mental illness. Of course, real disorders exist, but we've lowered the bar so much that now nearly every emotional struggle gets medicalized. The problem: kids believe they're broken. They act broken. If they believe they're fragile, they become fragile. Instead of building coping skills, they see themselves as victims. The result: a generation that identifies with their struggles instead of overcoming them. 6. The loss of meaning. A generation starving for purpose. People can endure almost anything if they have a sense of purpose. But today, traditional religion is fading. Family and community bonds are weaker. Young people feel lost, drifting, and directionless. Without meaning, life feels empty. Without meaning, anxiety and depression thrive. Without meaning, nothing feels worth fighting for. Many teens today don't just feel stressed, they feel pointless. And that is the deepest crisis of all. The way forward. How to fix the mental health crisis. The mental health crisis wasn't inevitable. It was created. And if we created it, we can undo it. Here's how. 1. Delay social media and phones. The later kids start using social media, the better their mental health. Encourage real-life connections over digital ones. Point 2. Bring back free play and outdoor time. Kids need unsupervised play to build resilience. Let them take risks and solve their own problems. 3. Reduce pressure and increase real-life skills. Stop pushing kids to be perfect. Teach them how to handle failure, not fear it. 4. Fix sleep. Make it a priority. Later school start times, no screens before bed. Make 8+ hours of sleep a non-negotiable. 5. Teach kids to see themselves as capable, not broken. Stop labeling every struggle as a disorder. Teach them that hard emotions are normal and temporary. 6. Help kids find meaning and purpose. Encourage service goals, Haidt, and real-world contribution. Help them see that life is bigger than their struggles. Final thought: strength is built, not given. The mental health crisis isn't about the world being harder. It's about kids being less prepared to handle it. But we can change that, not by making life easier, but by making kids stronger. Because the answer to anxiety isn't more avoidance, it's more resilience. Chapter 8. The Attention Crisis. Why kids can't focus anymore. The epidemic of lost focus. Something alarming is happening. Teachers say kids can't sit through a lesson without zoning out. Parents struggle to have a simple conversation with their children before a phone interrupts. Even high-achieving students admit they can't focus on reading a book or completing a task without checking their devices. Attention spans are shrinking at an unprecedented rate. More kids than ever are diagnosed with ADHD. More students say they can't read long books. More young people struggle to complete basic tasks without distraction. This isn't just a problem of self-control. It's a rewiring of the brain. We are training an entire generation to be unable to focus. But why? And more importantly, how do we fix it? Why is attention collapsing? Tension is the foundation of learning, creativity, and deep thinking. When you can focus, you can solve hard problems, think deeply about complex issues, master difficult skills, but today's world is designed to destroy focus. Here's how. 1. The infinite distraction. Key, machine the attention economy is stealing kids' minds. Every time a kid picks up their phone, they're entering a battlefield. On one side, them trying to focus. On the other side, billion-dollar companies trying to hijack their attention. Tech companies aren't just creating entertainment. They're creating addictive loops that make it impossible to focus on anything else. Endless social media scrolling, designed to be addictive, short, fast-paced videos, designed to hijack attention, push notifications, designed to keep you checking. Attention spans shrink because the brain gets hooked on instant stimulation. Deep work becomes impossible because kids crave constant novelty. Boredom, which fuels creativity, disappears, replaced by endless distraction. 2. The TikTok effect. Why short-form content is breaking the brain. Before smartphones, kids read books, played outside, and had long conversations. Now, they consume 15-second videos at lightning speed. Short-form content. TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels is destroying focus. Here's why. Rapid dopamine spikes. The brain gets hooked on quick bursts of pleasure. No patience for depth. Kids get bored easily with slow, complex tasks. Constant mental switching. The brain never stays on one thought long enough to process deeply. The result? Reading books feels impossible. Sitting through a full class feels unbearable. Tasks that require effort feel too hard to focus on. It's not because kids are lazy. It's because their brains have been rewired for constant novelty. 3. The multitasking myth. Why trying to do everything destroys attention. Most kids today believe multitasking makes them more productive. But the truth, multitasking kills focus. When you switch between homework gives phone notifications, studying gives, checking Instagram, reading gives, watching a video, your brain never enters deep focus. Instead of working at 100% efficiency, you work at 50% on everything. Studies show multitasking lowers IQ. People who multitask perform worse on cognitive tests. Deep work, which leads to mastery, becomes impossible. But most kids don't even realize what's happening. They think this is just how things are. Meanwhile, their ability to think deeply and focus for long periods is disappearing. 4. The anxiety-focus connection. Why stressed kids can't pay attention. Anxiety and attention problems go hand in hand. Why? 'Cause when you're anxious, your brain goes into survival mode. You constantly feel on edge, looking for threats. Focusing on deep work becomes impossible. Today's kids are more anxious than ever, and that directly affects their ability to focus. More anxiety equals more distraction. More distraction equals less learning. Less learning equals more frustration and hopelessness. It's a vicious cycle, and if we don't fix it, an entire generation will struggle to concentrate on anything meaningful. How? To rebuild attention and focus in a distracted world? Attention isn't just something you have, it's a skill you build. And right now, we need to rebuild that skill fast. Here's how. 1. Cut down screen time, especially short-form content. The first step to regaining focus. Reduce exposure to attention-killing content. Start with no screens the first and last hour of the day. A daily time limit on social media. No. Phones in the bedroom at night. That the less kids are exposed to rapid-fire dopamine loops, the more their brain can regain its natural ability to focus. Point 2. Train the brain for deep work. Attention isn't just lost, it can be rebuilt. Here's how. Start small. Read for 5 minutes a day, then increase. Use the Pomodoro technique. 25 minutes of focus. 5-minute breaks. Practice single tasking. No more jumping between screens like a muscle. The more you train focus, the stronger it gets. 3. Teach kids how to handle boredom without screens. Boredom is not the enemy. It's the birthplace of creativity and deep thinking. Encourage kids to go on walks without their phone, daydream instead of scrolling, do creative tasks, drawing, writing, playing music without distraction. The more they sit with boredom, the more their brain learns to focus again. 4. Improve sleep. The ultimate attention booster. A sleep-deprived brain can't focus. The best way to improve attention instantly. Get 8 to 10 hours of sleep every night. No screens 1 hour before bed. Keep a regular sleep schedule. Fix sleep, and focus will improve automatically. 5. Reduce anxiety and stress so the brain can focus. A calm brain can focus. A stressed brain stays distracted. To help kids focus better, teach mindfulness and breathing techniques. Encourage exercise to reduce stress. Help them build strong real-world relationships. Less stress equals more mental clarity. Final thought. Focus is a superpower in the modern world. The ability to focus is disappearing. And that's exactly why it's becoming one of the most valuable skills on the planet. Most people today are constantly distracted. Most people struggle to complete deep, meaningful work. Most people never train their ability to focus. But those who do, they become unstoppable. They master complex skills. They achieve extraordinary results. The choice is clear. Let your attention be stolen or take it back, because the ability to focus is the new superpower. Chapter 9. The Epidemic of Loneliness. Why kids feel more isolated than ever. The loneliest generation in history. Something is deeply wrong. More teenagers report feeling left out than ever before. Rates of depression and suicide among young people have skyrocketed despite being constantly connected online. Kids feel more alone than any previous generation. Loneliness is at an all-time high. Anxiety and depression are skyrocketing. Social media was supposed to connect us, but it's making us feel more alone. What happened? How did an entire generation more connected than ever end up feeling so completely disconnected? And more importantly, how do we fix it? The loneliness epidemic. How did we get here? For most of human history, kids played outside with friends daily, had deep face-to-face conversations, belonged to real-world communities. Now, they spend hours scrolling instead of socializing. They communicate through screens instead of voices. They replace real connection with likes and followers. And the result? More social isolation than ever before. More young people feel invisible, unheard, and alone. An entire generation is losing the ability to form deep, meaningful relationships. But why? 1. The social media illusion. Why more connection equals more loneliness. Social media was supposed to bring people together, but instead, it's making them feel more alone. Here's why. More friends online equals fewer real friendships in real life. Endless scrolling equals less face-to-face socializing. Curated, filtered lives equals more feelings of inadequacy. The truth. Social media gives the illusion of connection, but not real connection. It tricks the brain into thinking you're socializing when, in reality, you're just consuming content. It makes people compare their real lives to everyone else's highlight reel. And what happens when kids replace real friendships with digital interactions? They feel more isolated. They feel like they don't belong. They start believing that everyone else has a better life than them. Social media is not a social life. And the more kids rely on it for connection, the lonelier they become. 2. The death of face-to-face friendships before smartphones. Kids spent hours hanging out in person. They played outside. They had long, deep conversations. They built strong, real-world friendships now. Most socializing happens through screens. Texting replaces real conversations. Face-to-face interaction is disappearing. And here's the problem. Digital communication lacks real emotional depth. Online friends don't provide the same psychological benefits as real-world relationships. Human connection requires physical presence, something screens can't replicate. When kids stop spending time together in person, they lose the ability to read body language and facial expressions, have deep, uninterrupted conversations, form bonds that create real emotional security. And the result? More kids feel isolated, awkward, and socially anxious because they're losing the fundamental skills of real in-person friendship. Point 3. Fear of rejection. Why kids avoid real relationships. One reason kids hide behind screens. They're terrified of rejection. Social media makes it too easy to avoid real human interaction. Texting instead of talking means you don't have to deal with awkward silences. Liking a post feels like socializing. But without the risk of rejection, DIMs replace real life. Conversations where emotions are raw and unpredictable. But here's the cost. Kids don't develop resilience against social anxiety. They don't build the confidence to talk to people in real life. They become afraid of deep relationships because real relationships involve risk. And so they retreat into the safety of screens. But the more they avoid real social interactions, the more isolated and lonely they feel. 4. The rise of mental health struggles. How depression and anxiety fuel loneliness. Loneliness and mental health issues are deeply connected. When kids feel lonely, they get depressed. When they get depressed, they withdraw from social interactions. The more they withdraw, the lonelier they feel. Loneliness gives depression, gives more loneliness, gives more depression. It's a vicious cycle. And social media makes it worse by creating constant comparisons. Everyone else looks happier than me. Everyone else has more friends than me. Everyone else's life is better than mine. But the truth, people only post their best moments. The happiest-looking people are often struggling the most. Real life is messy, but social media makes it seem perfect. Kids feel alone not because they are alone, but because they're comparing their reality to an illusion. How to help kids build real connection. Loneliness isn't permanent. It's a symptom of modern life, and it can be reversed. Here's how. 1. Replace screen time with real social time. Less texting, more talking. Less scrolling, more face-to-face interaction. More real-world friendships, fewer online friends. The key: create tech-free zones for real connection. Encourage in-person hangouts instead of social media interaction. Teach kids that digital friendships are not a replacement for real ones. The more kids interact in real life, the less lonely they feel. Point 2. Teach the power of deep conversations. Today's social interactions are shallow and surface level. We need to help kids relearn how to connect deeply. Here's how. Encourage them to ask deeper questions. Teach them to really listen to others. Help them get comfortable with face-to-face. Unfiltered conversations. Deep conversations equals real connection, and real connection equals less loneliness. 3. Help kids overcome social anxiety by facing it, not avoiding it. Avoiding social interaction makes anxiety worse. The only way to fix it: expose kids to real social situations. Encourage them to join real-world groups, sports, clubs, hobbies. Push them to have real, in-person conversations even when it feels uncomfortable. Remind them that social skills are like muscles. They get stronger with practice. The more kids interact in the real world, the more confident and connected they'll feel. Final thought. The only real cure for loneliness. The modern world is designed to make people lonely, but real connection still exists, and it starts with spending less time online and more time in real life. Building deep, meaningful relationships instead of shallow digital ones. Choosing real conversations over endless scrolling. Because at the end of the day, no number of likes can replace real love. No number of followers can replace real friends. No amount of screen time can replace the power of real human connection. The choice is simple. Stay isolated behind a screen, or step into the real world and truly connect. Chapter 10. The Road to Recovery. How we can fix this crisis. A generation at a crossroads. Right now, we stand at a defining moment. We have two choices: continue down the same path. Let technology, anxiety, and disconnection consume an entire generation. Allow kids to grow up in a world where depression, loneliness, and lost potential are the norm. Take action. Rebuild childhood. Reclaim attention, mental health, and real-world connection. Create an environment where kids can thrive. Again, the future isn't set in stone. We can fix this, but it will take a conscious effort from parents, educators, policymakers, and young people themselves. The good news: the solutions are already within our reach. This chapter is about what we must do starting today to turn things around. Step 1. Redesign childhood for real-life connection. One of the biggest mistakes society has made is replacing real-world play and interaction with screens. We must reverse this trend. Bring back free play and get kids off screens unstructured. Outdoor play is essential for developing resilience, creativity, and social skills. The goal: every child should have at least 2 hours of outdoor screen-free play per day. Create screen-free zones at home. No phones during meals, no screens in bedrooms. Encourage sports, group activities, and hands-on hobbies instead of passive screen time. Let kids experience boredom. It's the birthplace of creativity. When kids interact face to face, their ability to build relationships and handle emotions naturally strengthens. Strengthen real-world communities. One of the biggest reasons for the loneliness epidemic is the decline of real communities. Parents need stronger social circles. Kids need close friendships beyond social media. Neighborhoods need to rebuild. The "it takes a village" mentality. Organize regular in-person gatherings, family dinners, local events, play dates. Encourage kids to spend time at friends. Houses real-world connection must become normal again. Limit the reliance on virtual interactions. Texting is not a replacement for deep friendships. Children thrive when they are surrounded by real, human connection. Step 2. Fix the mental health crisis at its source. Mental health struggles are not just about biology, they are deeply tied to environment and lifestyle. We need real solutions, not just more medication. Prioritize sleep like it's life or death, because it is. One of the most powerful things we can do for kids' mental health. Ensure they get 8 to 10 hours of high-quality sleep every night. Chronic sleep deprivation is directly linked to depression, anxiety, and focus issues. No screens 1 hour before bed. Blue light destroys melatonin. Consistent sleep schedule. Even on weekends, keep devices out of bedrooms. Phones are the #1 sleep killer. Fix sleep, and mental health improves automatically. Teach kids how to handle stress and anxiety. Anxiety thrives when kids never learn how to cope with discomfort. We must give them the tools to handle stress in a healthy way. Teach mindfulness and breathing techniques, simple but powerful. Encourage physical movement. Daily exercise is a natural antidepressant. Build real-world confidence through challenges. Resilience comes from overcoming difficulty. The goal: empower kids to manage their emotions without relying on screens or avoidance. Step 3. Rewire tension. Make focus a superpower again. We live in a distraction economy where companies profit from keeping kids unfocused. We must take intentional steps to reclaim attention spans. Set boundaries on digital overload. No social media before age 16. The younger a child starts, the worse their mental health outcomes. Strict limits on short-form content. TikTok Reels. Shorts train the brain to crave constant stimulation. Make reading and deep work a daily habit. Encourage reading physical books for at least 30 minutes a day. Use focus techniques like the Pomodoro method. 25 minutes of work, 5-minute breaks. Reduce background distractions. No music or videos while studying. The ability to focus is like a muscle. The more we train it, the stronger it gets. Stop overloading kids' schedules. Kids today are burned out because they are constantly overstimulated. Less is more. Give kids time to think, reflect, and process. Prioritize deep learning over cramming endless activities. Allow downtime to just be. Not everything needs to be productive. A slower, more intentional life creates space for real focus and creativity. Step 4. Rethink school. Make education work for kids, not against them. Traditional schooling is outdated for the modern world. We need education that prioritizes mental well-being, critical thinking, and real-world skills. Reduce screen dependence in schools. Many schools have replaced textbooks with screens, but studies show kids learn less from screens than from paper. Schools should prioritize handwriting, physical books, and face-to-face discussions. Less time on tablets, more time on real-world problem solving. Encourage outdoor breaks. Nature boosts focus and mental clarity. Teach mental resilience and life skills. Schools should teach real skills for handling life, emotional regulation and stress management, time management and deep work strategies, basic financial literacy and independent thinking. Education should be preparing kids for life, not just standardized tests. Step 5. Lead by example. Parents and adults must change first. Kids don't do what we say. They do what we do. If we want kids to live healthier, more focused lives, we must model the behavior ourselves. Be present. Put your phone down when talking to them. Set screen boundaries for the whole family, not just for kids. Prioritize real-world activities, sports, books, social gatherings. The best way to change kids' behavior. Change the environment they grow up in. The future is in our hands. This crisis was not inevitable. It was created by technology, by cultural shifts, by a misunderstanding of what kids need to thrive. But here's the truth. We are not powerless. We can rebuild childhood. We can create a world where kids are resilient, focused, and mentally strong, but only if we take action starting today. Final challenge. What will you do next? This book has given you the truth about what's happening and the tools to fix it. Now, it's up to you. Will you make small changes in your home, your classroom, your community? Will you share this message with others who need to hear it? Will you take the first step to rebuild a healthier future for the next generation? The time to act is now, because if we don't, risk losing an entire generation to anxiety, distraction, and disconnection. But if we do, we can create a world where kids grow up happier, healthier, and stronger than ever before. The choice is ours. Let's make it wisely. Conclusion: reclaiming a generation, a defining moment in history. We are at a crossroads. This is not just another parenting book. This is not just another conversation about social media. This is a call to action for the first time in human history. We have raised a generation that is more connected digitally but disconnected in real life. A generation that is more anxious, more distracted, and more fragile than ever before. This was not an accident. It was engineered by the rise of smartphones, social media, and an overprotective culture that stripped kids of independence and resilience. But if this crisis was created, it can be reversed, and that responsibility falls on us as parents, educators, leaders, and individuals who care about the future. The truth: no one is coming to save us. Tech companies will not change. Their profits depend on keeping kids addicted. Schools will not change fast enough. The system is too slow, too bureaucratic. The government will not fix this for us. Policies are too reactive, too political. The change must start at home. The real battle is not against social media companies or schools. The real battle is for our children's minds. It's about who gets to shape their attention, their emotions, their self-worth. Will it be us, their parents, mentors, and role models? Or will it be an algorithm built to exploit their psychology? We already know what happens if we do nothing. The question is, what will we do instead? The 5 commitments to change. If we truly want to rebuild a generation, we must commit to these 5 essential actions. 1. Protect real-world childhood. Delay smartphones and social media as long as possible. Make free, unstructured play a daily priority. Encourage real-world friendships and face-to-face interaction. We must stop outsourcing childhood to screens and bring back real experiences. 2. Rebuild mental strength and focus. Prioritize deep work, books, and slow thinking over digital distractions. Set strict sleep boundaries, no screens before bed. Teach kids how to manage stress and discomfort instead of avoiding it. We must train resilience, not fragility. 3. Lead by example. Put down your phone, show kids what presence looks like. Prioritize real conversations over notifications. Create tech-free zones at home. Kids won't change unless we do. 4. Take back control. From tech giants. Limit short-form content and dopamine-driven apps. Use tools that block addictive algorithms. Advocate for ethical technology and stronger protections for children. The tech industry profits from distraction. We must fight back. 5. Build a movement. Spread the message. This is bigger than one family, one school, or one community. Talk to other parents. Set boundaries together. Push schools to adopt healthier tech policies. Share this message with teachers, friends, and leaders. Change happens when enough people demand it. The final question: will you act or watch? We have two choices. Point 1, we can ignore this crisis, hope that somehow things will get better. Point 2, or we can step up. Let's take small actions today that will shape the future. Every choice you make, from how you use your phone to how you guide your kids, either fuels the problem or the solution. This is not just about kids today. It's about the world we are creating for the next generation. It's about whether we raise kids who are strong, focused, and resilient, or a generation that is anxious, lost, and controlled by screens. That choice is ours. Which future will we choose? Your next steps. Take action today. 1. Choose one change you will make right now. Example: no screens in bedrooms. It's more real-world play. To have a conversation with another parent or educator about this book. Point 3, share this message. Spread awareness. Start a movement in your home and community. We are not powerless. We can rebuild a generation, but it starts with you. Let's make it happen.